Momentum Health, because one size doesn't fit all.
Anyone who's sought solace in a pizza or a slab of the dark stuff knows that food can be comforting. Food does more than fill our stomachs, it also satisfies feelings, and when you quench those feelings with comfort food, when your stomach isn't growling, that is emotional eating. Joanna, why do we eat when we are emotional?
Well, from a genetically predisposed reprogramming, what happens is we often are drawn to fatty foods or comfort foods as a way to survive. And when we're feeling very much under threat, the back part of our brain, the brainstem, often signals that we are not feeling safe. And then we are very much drawn to comfort foods. That's on one level, on a very much a biological level. Okay. But on an emotional level, often we want to suppress feelings. We're feeling stressed. We have very bad learned behavior from our parents or
You're right. I mean, that's, if you stop crying, my boy, I'll give you a little sweet. That's
Absolutely.
The worst thing you can do to kids, can't you?
Absolutely. Or, if you do your homework, by the end of the week, I'll take you to McDonald's for a nice burger. So there's often association with reward and punishment regarding food. Or if you're naughty, you need to go to your bed, you're not going to be eating supper tonight. So there's a lot of association, positive and negative association with foods. What
are your typical comfort foods? I mean, we talked about sweets, and I know ice cream is at the top of that list. It has to be.
It is. Ice cream is typically one, but starchy foods like breads and pastas. Other comforting foods are chocolates typically and cookies.
Is there a difference between men and women?
Sure. What we find is that men typically crave steaks and pizzas, and I'm thinking of beer and that sort of thing, and women typically crave obviously chocolates and cookies.
There's often an association with negative emotions in eating. What about positive emotions? I mean, when you're happy, when you're celebrating, bubblies, chocolate, that sort of thing.
It's a very good question. We often think of emotional eating as something negative, but we sometimes want to maintain that good blissful feeling. So we often find ourselves linking ice cream, for example, with pleasure and fun. Chocolates with a feeling of comfort and romance. We think about Valentine's Day. So absolutely, sometimes it is about maintaining that blissful state.
So how do we tell the difference then, Joanna, between emotional eating and physical hunger?
What typically I often tell people when they come to me for example, eating disorders, I often say to them that they need to be aware, step one, is this real hunger or is this an emotional response that your body's trying to tell you, a feedback loop about what is missing in your life? So what I often say to them is that if it's instant and it's sudden and impulsive, and you need that very specific thing to drown or comfort or suppress that feeling or to satisfy that feeling or that need, it's typically an emotionally based, and it's often in response to feelings that we comfort eat. But biologically, we respond to physiological needs. So it's a hunger pang in your stomach, whereas emotional eating, it's very much something telling you in your mind, in your brain, that I need to eat something.
In fact, there are a couple of things. I mean, if you think about the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger, emotional hunger comes on suddenly. Physical hunger occurs gradually. That's one thing. The other is you crave a specific food, like a pizza or ice cream, as Joanna was saying, and only that food will meet your need. That's emotional. When you're eating because you're hungry, you're more likely to stop when you're full. Not so when you're emotionally eating. And finally, emotional eating can leave behind feelings of guilt. Eating when you're physically hungry definitely doesn't. I don't feel guilty when I eat after I'm being hungry.
Typically when we've eaten because we're hungry, we often feel content and satisfied. We know exactly when to stop. But when we're feeling emotionally hungry, there's a tendency of emptiness. We then feel guilty. We eat more because we've eaten too much. You feel guilty to suppress the feeling of guilt. You eat more, and hence the cycle of maladaptive coping actually starts.
Okay, so Madam Shrink, and forgive me for calling you that, how do we manage emotional eating?
What we need to do is, like a robot, is to stop and pause between the thought and the feeling of eating versus the impulse to do it, so the action. So when you have that feeling or that desire to eat, you need to recognize, am I really hungry or am I emotionally desiring something? And then what you do in that 5 minutes, instead of going to the fridge or taking your hand and scooping into the sweet bowl, find something alternative to do. So go and make yourself a nice warm cup of tea. Go put some hot water bubble bath, grab yourself a good book to read and jump into the bath.
You make such a good point. I'm sorry I'm interrupting there. As human beings, we're so often told to stop doing something, but that's hard to do. It's better to replace it with something. What you're saying is replace that emotional instant need to eat with a bath, with a cup of tea, with a warm shower, kind of a blanket.
And to understand what is that underlying feeling, what is my body trying to tell me here? So if I'm needing a little bit more comfort and love, ask for a hug. If I'm needing a little bit of stress relief and I need to decrease my stress levels, find out if you need to go and check out your, your blood sugar levels, maybe go to the doctor and check out whether you, depleted in serotonin, for example. You might be having signs of depression or anxiety. So there might be something else that your body's trying to tell you, and then try and meet that need in a more adaptive way.
Brilliant. So there's lots to it. Joanna, thank you so much. So you're saying essentially as we go into the December holidays, what you really want to do is have more hugs and less chocolate. I mean, remember that emotional eating is something that most people do when they're bored, happy or sad. It might be a bag of chips or ice cream or a pizza, which isn't a vegetable, by the way. Whatever the food choice, learning how to control it and using moderation are really key to maintaining healthy living.
For flexible cover that suits your individual healthcare needs.